My formal and self-education journey has always been up and down. I was some of the brightest students when I got to elementary school. I ranked first in my class for the first few semesters. At that moment, this got me thinking, oh my god, I'm gifted. Of course, I got a little too ahead of myself. Especially throughout middle school, I disappointed a lot of people. I was terrible socially, and my grades were far below expectations. I remember some teachers even crying for me. They told me that I didn't belong in such a dark place. From their voices, I could hear their disappointment, but at the same time, their faith in me. So, at one day in 9th grade, I decided that I had enough and I wanted to do better for myself. Fortunately, something struck me when I got to high school. From the day I first walked through the gates, I was full of conviction. I tried harder and positioned myself well enough to attract opportunities throughout my 3 years. I was elected president of the English club in my 2nd year. I held a good amount of debate trophies and best speaker medals. And quite ironically, for a gaming channel that I started in middle school, I received the YouTube Silver Play button. After graduating high school, I looked for a university. After getting rejected 3 times, I finally got into a top engineering school in Indonesia. I had all the excitement of studying mechanical engineering, the prestige, as well as the promise of a bright future where I will have an excellent paying job. Great job, Zahid. You're on the right path as a debater, you have an audience in your YouTube gaming channel, and now you're studying in some of the best universities in Indonesia. I was all of that until I quit. First, I quit parliamentary debating. Although one can argue that I was in the right path and I had the potential to make it in the scene, I stopped enjoying the activity and I decided to dedicate my time on something else that brings me more joy. Then I quit my YouTube gaming channel. At the time, it had 120-something thousand subscribers. The reason being is that I just simply lost interest in games. Finally, and probably the biggest of the 3, I gave up a seat in the university of my dreams. As a high school student, I've always wanted to go there. But when I got there, I realized that I didn't want to be an engineer and that I got here for the wrong reasons. So just a few weeks into my 2nd semester, I submitted my withdrawal letter. When I left my university, I was already one of the most subscribed educational channels in Indonesia. People were shocked when I made the decision. My name appeared on Twitter threads, celebratory comments started appearing under my Instagram posts, and the neighborhood mums, they started their investigation on the mystery of why I quit. In our society, there is a huge shame culture surrounding quitting. The common and intuitive advice is that whatever you do, you should not quit. You should just stick with it. You should just grit it out. If you quit, you are a certified loser. So at first, that's surely what I felt. I felt I was not capable. I felt I was weak. I felt that I was a loser. What I discovered and later went on to prove for myself is that quitting is some of the best decisions you can make, and winners, they do it all the time. Roger Federer played other sports like football before finally deciding to quit and focus on tennis. Had he listened to the never quit advice, maybe he would have gone on to become a decent football player. But we would not see the 20 Grand Slams, an Olympic doubles gold medal, and other historical awards to his name. Or Professor Brian Cox, who has a TED Talk of his own by the way, who decided to quit pursuing music professionally and decided to become a physicist. Okay, you might say that these are statistical anomalies and they're unlikely to happen to the average Joe. But of course, you don't need to be an Olympic champion. You don't also need to be an award-winning scientist. Your goal for quitting something could simply be that you wanted to spend more time with your family, you saw a better opportunity, or maybe you wanted to quit an unhealthy relationship just for the sake of your health and well-being. Why do you quit? When someone asks you this question, it's really hard to articulate. When we speak about newfound goals, we speak about dreams and desires, things in the future that have not yet happened. We don't want to articulate our goals because we don't want to sound naive. We don't want to sound like this person that thinks life will always go their way. But I assume that most of us, before we pull the trigger of quitting, we have actually made reasonable analysis on why this is the better decision. So when should you quit and when should you stick? Thanks to the Stephen Bartlett quitting framework, here is the answer. First, if what you're doing is hard and it's not worth the potential reward, then quit. If the potential reward is worth it, let's say you've always wanted to be a doctor and now you're struggling in your 3rd year of medical school, then stick. If what you're doing is not fulfilling and the effort to make it better is not worth the reward, then quit. However, if you can make the situation better, if you can make it more fun, make it more interesting, more engaging, perhaps you can consider sticking. When you want to quit, it's best to do it as early as possible. Of course, that is after doing reasonable analysis. If you've done that as a prerequisite, then try not to delay quitting in fear of how other people might react. We need to accept that the short-term reality of confronting other people and confronting other stakeholders may be horrifying, but this is a necessary step in hopes to win us long-term fulfillment. You will probably face some dilemmas when quitting. Here are some that I faced. First, when I wanted to quit mechanical engineering, it wasn't as if mechanical engineering was this hellhole that I needed to escape. I was in a good university, one of the best accredited programs in the country, and surely, even if I graduate with minimum requirements, the university name alone could land me a job here back home. However, while this can be considered a good option, there is an opportunity cost. If I decide to stick with this good decision, I may not be able to see what is there behind this great decision that I could have made. The option of studying abroad or spending my time in topics that I'm deeply curious about has the potential to yield more rewards to my specific circumstances. And these rewards, of course, don't always have to be in monetary or material terms. I, for example, value the experience of living in a completely foreign country, learning new languages, and also meeting people who come from different backgrounds. So, although both options were definitely positive, I decided to go for what I think was the better one. The second dilemma I faced was when I wanted to quit parliamentary debating. I hesitated to quit because I thought, I have spent 3 years in this field. I've invested in books, coaches, plane tickets, and I didn't want all of them to be in vain. What I needed to realize was that no matter how much energy, time, or resources that I dedicated into something in the past, they cannot be the sole reasons for me to stick with a decision. It's a tough pill to swallow because ignoring these sunk costs feel like a loss. And losses, they feel much more painful than gains twice the size are joyful. If I were to stick with my initial decision because of the sunk costs as a sole reason, that would probably result in me, first, wasting more time, energy, and resources. Second, I would continue to lose happiness and sense of fulfillment. And third, I would be forced to quit. That's either because I've run out of time and resources, or at that point, I could simply just couldn't take it anymore. Rather than being forced, it's much better when we make the active decision to quit. The next dilemma or challenge that I faced was when I asked people years ahead of me what they thought about walking the wrong path. Most of them said that they were glad. As humans, we have the tendency to perceive our past decisions to be better than they were. We tend to assign positive attributes to decisions that we made in the past in hopes to not live a life full of regrets and what-ifs. This is the choice supportive bias. Ascribing positive traits to our past decisions is not wrong per se, but depending on the questions that we ask, we may get an inaccurate picture of how we should act going to the future. Let's say we are an architecture student who thinks that they're in the wrong major. So we approach an architecture graduate from our school who switched tracks and eventually became a successful sportscaster. If we ask, were you glad to have studied architecture? They would probably say yes. When we look at our mistakes, we tend to say that we're grateful for them because they helped shape who we are today. So maybe when you try to get help from people ahead of you, you can ask things like whether they would repeat the same mistake of picking the wrong major or whether they would return to whatever field that they were in before. Their answer to the second question could act as a better reference. The fourth challenge, the anxiety of the what-ifs. What if I switch tracks and fail? What if I can't prove other people wrong? Here, we should try to detach the quality of an outcome and the quality of a decision. You can still wear a seatbelt, but due to luck or unforeseen circumstances like the weather or a reckless driver on your tail, still end up in a crash. On the other hand, you can drunk drive, not wear a seatbelt, but somehow still end up getting home safe and sound. But does that mean that we should drunk drive and not wear seatbelts? Obviously not. Due to luck or unknown factors, the quality of an outcome doesn't always reflect the quality of a decision. Just like anything else in life, by quitting, we are trying to make a reasonable bet on what we think will yield us the most favorable returns. In the 3 ventures that I quit, competitive debating, gaming, and engineering, I was initially told to stick with it. I was told that I should not quit, I should just grit it out. Although you do need resilience in certain parts of life, had I listened to the do not quit advice, I would not be where I am now. I may not be the most successful guy around, I may not go to the most prestigious university, have the most prestigious occupation, make the most money, but strategically quitting certain things has allowed me to focus my limited energy, time, and resources on things that mean the most to me. Because I quit my YouTube gaming channel, I had the energy and the time to study and concentrate on school and focus on getting myself involved in high-pressure environments of being a student leader. Because I quit parliamentary debating, I had the time to take courses on filmmaking, on studio building, on podcasting, on interviewing, teaching, which allowed me to build a YouTube channel that's focused on education. At 300,000 subscribers, it dethrones my previous channel in terms of subscriber count, and also we just won YouTube Indonesia's award for the best edutainment channel in 2021. Because I quit my initial major, I was able to take a gap year. I got to know myself more, I started training for a marathon, and just 2 months ago, I received an acceptance letter from a university abroad in Japan. Finally, I would like to credit someone who inspired this talk, made me reflect on my life decisions, and made me dare to quit in order to focus on what I value the most. In his book titled The Dip, Seth Godin said, "Winners quit all the time. They just quit the right stuff at the right time. Winners quit fast, quit often, and quit without guilt." This has been Zahid Ibrahim. Thank you for tuning into my TED Talk.